our parents, they're very close mouth about a lot of things. They didn't
True.
discuss things, and they came from a time where if something wasn't working, they were going to, for lack of a better word, suffer through it.
Because that's supposed to be an enjoyable experience, and if it's not, then we need to talk about why it isn't.
Especially intimacy. Why should you not know what's making your partner happy or not happy?
Happy Sunday! Welcome to episode 6 of Let's Talk About You. It's always an honor. It's always a privilege to just join you. And I want to say Happy New Year because I haven't seen you guys for the new year. I am so glad that you guys have stayed tuned to Let's Talk About You. We have so much in store for season 6. And why is 6 so important? I looked it up. It has to do with families. It has to do with community. And that's one of the things that we want to bring here on Let's Talk About You. So we have a great show with a great set of people that we're going to talk about relationships. And what better time than the month of February to talk about relationships and all the things it has to offer. The good, the bad, the in-between, the fun, the joyful. Those are some of the things that we're going to bring forth today with our 3 phenomenal guests. And one exciting thing that I'm so happy about, I have 2 males from right here in St. Thomas, and I have a young lady all the way from the Cayman Islands. I can't wait for you guys to see my guests. So without further ado, let's get into our episode 1 of season 6 of Let's Talk About You. Let's come on in, guests. Come on in, guests. We have Mr. Terrence Thomas. We have Ms. Tyson. We have Mr. Shazar. And I just want you guys to say a little bit about yourselves so our listening audience can hear from you who we have today on episode 1 of season 6. And let's talk about you. Let's start with ladies first.
Well, hi there. I am Catherine Tyson Sewell. So I have to always include Mr. Sewell's name behind that because I'm hyphenated now, so I'm quite excited about that. So I do got to give him his props, right? I am an author. I've written a couple of books. I am a social worker by profession. I work with families and communities. Just trying to help people just have a better life or just enjoy their life better. And I am from the Cayman Islands originally. I've spent half my life in the U.S., so I'm pretty global. I have 3 adult children, and I have a toddler with Mr. Sewell. And so I have wheeled and come again at this point in my life. So that's a little bit about me. 2 of my books, they are about being a single mother to 3 children who are now adults, and how I navigated the waters of that, and educating myself to a master's degree level, as well as my children being university educated. It's a great feat for a single mother, and so it's a great story to tell, to inspire people, and to just make the best of what life gives you and make that lemonade from those lemons, as they say, not to be cliche. So that's a little bit about me. And thank you so much for having me on. Very excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you here because I do want us to, let's talk about you, not just to be local or have guests from the mainland. I want us to be multicultural, multi-Caribbean, multinational. So thank you for saying yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, I've been trying to get a hold of you, young man.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I am well. Can you tell our listening audience about you, Mr. Mr. T?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Terrence Thomas. I am from the U.S. Virgin Islands. On the island of St. Thomas is where I was born and raised. And that's a little tidbit about me knowing Miss Francis, her brothers, I should say, and sister. Actually, I grew up knowing them. One of her brothers, Tyrone, is actually my classmate from high school. So we go way, way back. I won't tell you how I got to know her when she was walking around as a tyke, right? A little bit about me. I'm a like I said, I grew up here in St. Thomas in U.S. Virgin Islands. I'm a graduate of the Charlotte Amalie High School class in 1984. So you do the math, and you see how long I've been out of high school. I attended the University of the Virgin Islands. I graduated in '88 with my bachelor's, and then moved to New York, came back, and did my master's, which I got in 1995. Literally my entire career has been in the field of information technology. I started out entry level, and today I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for the Public Retirement System here in the Virgin Islands, known as GERS, or the Government Employees Retirement System. In addition to my IT career, I've been in the radio business for 4 years this February. And I've been part of the most popular radio station in the territory, WSTA, since 1988. And this February as well, a talk show that I co-host entitled Ideas and Issues. We are entering our 29th season, so we've been doing that for 29 years. It doesn't seem that long, but it is. And personal note, I've been married for 31 years as of December gone. I have 2 grandkids, 1 daughter. Actually, one of my granddaughters is hitting 18 on the 21st of this month. And the other one is 9 going at 19 and thinks she runs thing. And so that's just a little bit about me. I look forward to being part of this show this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shazar. I had to redeem myself and have Mr. Shazar as a guest again. So, Mr. Shazar, for those that couldn't hear you because of pre-WAPA issues, tell us about yourself.
Oh gosh, well, thank you so much for having me back on. It's certainly a privilege, and it's wonderful to be with other esteemed guests. This is going to be a great discussion. My name is Langley Shazer. I'm the host of Casual Word Radio. Also, like Mrs. Tyson Sewell, published several books. I currently write for The Source. I have a column that is for men. It's for, having some of those hard conversations and talking about bringing some of the things to light that men think about but don't often talk about. So that's a lot of what I'm doing now, is really working with young men, working with young fathers, and trying to just help all of us become the best version of ourselves. Professionally, I currently work at BIT, as a Bureau of Information Technology, as a project manager. And I've worn a lot of hats. I do a lot of community service, a lot of community activism. I sit on lots of boards and commissions, and anything I can try to do to give back to wherever community I'm part of, because I'm not from the Virgin Islands, but I've been here almost 4 years now. So whatever community that I'm part of, I try to make it a point to make sure that I'm giving back and making a positive impact.
Well, we're glad to have you. 4 years, so you can just consider yourself a Virgin Islander. You're already indoctrinated. So let's talk a little bit about relationships. I mean, for my panels here, I know, Mr. Shazar, you didn't state if you were married or not, but I'll just take it that you're single, but in a relationship.
Yes, I am in a relationship.
Yes. So we have a great setting, because we have the married, or we have the singles in a relationship, and we have the single not in a relationship. So we're going to make this a fun-filled, free-flowing conversation. I'm going to start with you, Miss Tyson. I no disrespect to your husband. I just don't want to call your name wrong.
Okay.
But and not just only for ladies first, but I want to talk to you also because you said you wheeled and you come again. I want to start our conversation about wheeling and coming again, because that meant you have 2 grown kids and you have a 2-year-old. God bless you.
Trust me, I need blessings. I need God. Thank you. I have 3. I actually have 3 adult children, not 2. So I have 2 boys and a girl, and the baby's a girl. So I have 2 boys and 2 girls that are mine, but the adults are, or it's 3 of them. And I also have a granddaughter. So I have a granddaughter that's going to be 3 next week. And so she and my daughter are growing up. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting situation. And as you were talking about who you have on, you have someone who's been married 31 years.
31 years.
And I'm newly, well, we still call it newly because we've been married 3 years. So this year, November will be 4 years. So with my wheeling and coming again, I'm now like, a newer married person. So, we'll have like two different experiences from the 31 years versus the 3 years. So you have a very eclectic combination on the show today. So
yes, that's what makes it so great. But with your wheeling and coming again, because of your 3 adult kids, you had a previous marriage, correct?
Yes. So I had a marriage as a young girl, so I was 20 years old when I got married the first time. And that was, coming from the islands. I was in the States, coming from a very Christian background. We had graduated high school when we were 16 years old. So 20 was 4 years out of high school. The days that I come from, I'm Gen X, right? So our age people were not necessarily, the women were not like 100% college bound. So 4 years later, after high school, it was not an abnormal thing to be getting married, So I got married at 20. And by 26, I had found myself as a single mother, separated from my husband with 3 little children. So that's, and I spent many years on my own with my children because I had 3. It wasn't one cute little one, it was 3, and 2 were boys. They were all over the place. So it wasn't that easy to really connect, find the right person because, you got 3 other people that need to match, and I was very, very serious about that. I had grown up in a situation where, my mom had ended up marrying a guy when I think I was like 9, or she met a guy when I was 9. And, I think when I was 12, like we had a blended family, and he didn't like my brothers. He didn't like me. So it was a whole thing. So I was, when I found myself in that situation, even though like I was married with my 3 kids, I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. We're separated. And for me to find love, it would have to have been something that really connected with my 3 kids. And I just never found that. Like it somebody liked one of them or somebody didn't like one of them, so it was always kind of an issue. So it took a while for me to really, find this love in my life. And I did. And I'm very grateful and, thankful to God that I was where I was and he was where he was and we connected. He's younger than I am as well. He's not from where I'm from, but just how we connected was just amazing and kind of inspired me to, compromise. We both made compromises. He met an older chick with grown kids and I met a younger guy with no kids. And so, we decided to make our life the unique life that it is. So that's how we ended up where we are right now. So it's all blessings, but it definitely is not your average situation.
Well, I feel even in this day and age, one, you didn't give up on love. So kudos to you. And, a lot of times is where we tend to get in these uncomfortable situations and have these uncomfortable truths. And Mr. Thomas, you're the seasoned married person here. Being a 31-year vet, I take it that you were married very young because, you just said you were only 29. So.
No, actually, I don't mind giving away my age. I got married at 27, so you could do the math, right? I think, like the lady who just spoke, I'm Gen X, born 1966. So 27 for people from my generation is pretty much around the time people my age will get married. I think when I look back at like my grandparents and parents, they were getting married younger. My grandmother on my mother's side, she got married at 17. All right. My mom, doing the math quick in my head, she got married at 25. So I was within what you call it, the bell curve, so to speak,
Yeah.
for my generation, right? I think the millennials, they push that bell curve average out some now because they're doing it in their 30s,
Right.
31.
And I think they want to live a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, we have to be realistic as well. Times have changed significantly between 60s and now. Economic hardships. Unfortunately, children today or young people today in their 20s, 30s have it, in my opinion, more difficult economically than when I was coming up for a variety of reasons. I know when I was growing up, you used to hear the older folks say, I want to make sure that you have life easier than I had it, right? And I find that it's posing a little bit of a challenge now with all that's going on in the world for young people. But yeah, so I got married at 27 to come back to your question. So I didn't jump in at 2021.
I understand that. So let's jump into some of the things. Being Gen X, so I guess I'm a Gen X. Is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're born, you're born like in the 70s, so
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll say I'm a Gen X. So let's get into being uncomfortable and not being uncomfortable because ignorance is bliss, isn't it? And a lot of times, because we're in a different age, and as you said, Mr. Thomas, the more younger kids are getting married older, because let's be
If
real,
at
no one.
all.
I'm sorry.
If at all.
If
yeah.
at all. But
Yeah.
a lot of times I think that they're finding to know themselves and they can't really have, well, I think, well, for my generation and my parents, they had conversations, but not the real conversations, or they did a lot of parables and you kind of have to fill in the blanks. But I think now people want to have more of a real, genuine conversation. And, you know, let's be real. Nobody wants to think like when they have a partner that they are enjoying themselves or not enjoying themselves in the bedroom or not. And the reality is sometimes we tend to say things to make the other person feel good more than we really should. And maybe, because we're trying to protect their feelings and avoid awkward conversation. So because now you're more mature and seasoned, do you think it's better to have that uncomfortable truth, whether it's something dealing with intimacy or any other thing that you feel with your partner, instead of just faking it? Because a lot of times I think we just fake it just to keep the peace instead of really telling the truth so you can grow. What do you think? I want to start with you, Mr. Shazar, because even though you're not married, it's a relationship is a relationship.
Absolutely. And I do want to say that I am the millennial. Okay. So we'll put that on the table. But also I have been married before. And so I have been divorced. And, I was in my mid 30s before I decided to finally take that leap, if you will. So, it didn't work, but I think it didn't work. Now, bringing this to your point, a lot of conversations weren't had that should have been had. And then when we got to a place where those things started to come up, they were no longer conversations, they were arguments. So I think that it is imperative that we have those conversations. And I know we use that buzzword about hard conversations and uncomfortable conversations, and I don't think that they have to be hard. What makes them difficult is the emotion that gets involved behind it. Right? If we're just having a conversation and I'm stating some facts and you're stating some facts and we're trying to understand each other, it may be something that you didn't know, but it doesn't have to be difficult. Right? What makes it difficult is that people listen to respond, listen to become defensive. They don't want to acknowledge or take accountability for where they are and perhaps the truth of what they've done, which has generated whatever the contention might be. So I think that it's important. I know there's conversations that people kind of say are one-on-one stuff, finances, beliefs, children, child raising, those kind of things. And I think those are super important as well. But in my case, um, those conversations were also not super imperative because when I was dating, marriage wasn't really the goal, right? The goal was to find someone that I was compatible with. And, if we got married, great. But it wasn't like I got to find someone because I got to have a wife. Now, of course, as I matured, I realized the importance of the marriage, the union, and as my faith has continued to evolve and develop, I understand that it is important to have a wife and not just have a partner. But it's also not like that it has to happen, right? If it doesn't happen, then there's a reason, right? Paul talked about that, right? He was never married, so there's sometimes you might not be meant for that. But I think that we all have the opportunity and we all have the ability to get there. So I think that it's important to have, as you know more about yourself, you also have to understand what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not, right? All relationships are an inherent risk because you're dealing with another individual and their life. And the older you get back into dating, the more life someone brings with them, right, to that equation. So
True.
you really have to be willing to reconcile yourself with your past and where you want to go, and then be able to communicate that effectively.
And I like that you said that you have to reevaluate yourself. But don't you find sometimes, well, I think that partners tend to sometimes have that difficult conversation because of their own inner insecurities. So let's just throw it out there. It may be a situation that, you're doing something and you're being intimate. Would you prefer your partner say, I don't like that, or break it down of what it is that they enjoy rather than not? Or you feel like that would intimidate your manhood, or you would be uncomfortable with Miss Tyson because you're female and it's like, he told me that? Would you be grasping your pearls?
I think it's important. I think it's important. I obviously I think the delivery, right, is really what's going to determine how it's received, how you say that. But I think it's important to communicate those things, because that's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. And if it's not, then we need to talk about why it isn't.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the various generations experience things differently, right? So I am Gen X. My husband's actually a millennial, right? Okay, so just to say that's our age difference. So it's interesting because he teaches me a lot and I teach him a lot. Like we're learning a lot, even though it may seem that it would be more of a struggle because we're very similar. Thank God, and I think that's how we ended up really connecting, because we have very similar value systems, and we look at life differently. And he's the old guy actually. Because I'm like, we're going out, we're out of here, let's go, because he's just like tucked in, so that's how it works. Where I'm kind of the young soul, he's the old soul, I'm the young soul. But so for my generation, I feel like interacting with a man that was closer to my age, it would have been more difficult to talk to him about certain things, wherein my husband, his generation is very much talking, like y'all talk. Yep. And then he's a man. So of course, being a man, we do communicate a little bit different, but I think we do appreciate honesty. Like I don't think he wants me to grin and bear. He doesn't want me to suffer through anything. He doesn't want me to be uncomfortable. And then because he knows that sort of thing breeds problems in the long run. And so, as uncomfortable as it can be to say, hey, I don't like that, or hey, I'd rather that, or here's what I like. I think that that just makes things so much easier, because, the issues that can come up with not wanting to hear what your partner wants or needs, that's not a good thing to be doing. Not in this day and age where everything is available at any time, and it's just, I think that there's so much room for temptation or to be stepping out on each other or whatever when you're not open to honesty. So I think honesty is absolutely, and that's just cliche, is just the best policy. But for real, I think so. no, regardless of what it is, and especially intimacy. Why should you not know what's making your partner happy or not happy? Why
I
should
agree.
you not know?
Jump in the conversation, Mr. Thomas, because one point that Miss Tyson made is that the age difference, but because the younger generation likes to talk, it makes things easier. So you're a Gen X. Do you talk?
Uh, yeah, because, well, okay, let me just back it up a little bit and say this, right? I think the younger generation finds themselves talking because they've been exposed to a lot more. I think back to high school or junior high. Let's start from junior high. There are certain things that I find young people talking about at that age today that was strictly taboo when I was
Yeah.
14, 15. I come from the generation where to get girl to date, you have to carry her books for like 2 months before she'd even let you, what I mean, hug up or something. So their perspective on relationships is a lot different, probably because they're exposed to more. Also, our parents, they're very close mouth about a lot of things. They didn't
True.
discuss things, and they came from a time where if something wasn't working, they were going to, for lack of a better word, suffer through it and not really address the elephant in the room, right? I saw my parents go through that, and then eventually they split up and they got divorced. So
Exactly.
communication wasn't a big thing for them. Now, for me, I think communication is important. My wife is an educator, so of course, her best way of doing her job is to speak to students. So communication for her has never really been a problem. Being somebody who's been in radio, that's my forte as well, being able to speak. Now, where it can get difficult is addressing things um, that you may not like. And I'm not just talking about intimacy, but just life in general, as to how people go about problem solving. I have a technical mind, so I tell people I'm left brained, right? So I'm very analytical, very detailed. My wife is more free form. She's right brain, creative, spontaneous, those kind of things. And sometimes that would drive me nuts, right? Because she'd be like, let's just do this. And so you kind of have to meet in the middle. On the
Yeah.
subject of intimacy, again, that's where discussion comes in. Um, one of the things we did before we got married is our church um, did what they call it, marriage counseling. So it's like, okay, put your cards on the table and let's hear them out. I think that's important because if you're being honest during that process, things may come up and then you now have to figure out, can I live with this or can I not? Right? Instead of 3 years into the marriage, you're finding out, you know, you don't like Nike shoes and I have a Nike shoe fetish. We can't get a lot. I just oversimplifying it, but those kind of things, I think that's very important. For me, I tell people this all the time. I try to pattern the kind of person, spouse I would be off of what I saw didn't work for my parents. Okay. And I think it's very important for us to realize that there's certain things that follow us from generation to generation. And you're going to have to break that cycle. You know what I mean? I'm not ashamed to say I come on my father's side. We have a bunch of womanizers. I mean, just out there, right? So I told myself, nah, I can't do it because it didn't work for him and it didn't work for some of his siblings. Or if it worked, it brought a lot of, not if it worked, but if the other half of the relationship was willing to accept it, there was a lot of, you know, I don't want to say animosity, but angst is the best word I can find, you know. And so you need to address those things, and communication has to be key. Another thing you can't do, and not to pick on the ladies, but I find sometimes women get with their other girlfriends and what's working for their girlfriend. They figure they could bring that home and work for them. No, you're gonna find what works for you. Same thing for guys. You can't
I was going
pattern.
to say that the guys do
Yeah,
that too.
you can't pattern
Yeah.
what works for your best friend in your marriage. There's a funny, what do you call it, Muppet show that comes out of Trinidad. I can't remember the name of it. It's really, really funny. And there's one of the episodes where the husband and wife got in something, and you could hear them fighting. And after the fighting finished, she asks him, "What you want to eat?" And he says, "Pilau." And the guy next door tries to do that, and his wife beats the crap out of him, right? So what works for one person isn't gonna work for you. So
No.
you have to find your spot. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I
you have
agree.
to find your spot. You can't try and emulate things, and I've been to several marriage seminars at church, and I think sometimes church try and put things in a box based on, they use the scriptures and whatnot to create like a mold. But then you have to find, okay, yeah, that's like a guide, but you're gonna have to modify that guide.
Yes, and get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, because otherwise you're
I
gonna be in
agree.
trouble.
I
You know,
agree.
You're gonna be in trouble. I remember there was I watched a video with Miles Monroe some years ago, and he said a lady at his church came to him to complain her husband, and she was like, "Pastor Monroe, I need you to speak to my husband because all he wants is sex, 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 sex." And Miles Monroe said, "Ma'am, I can't help you because that's all I want."
Your dream come to life. That is the mission behind Kiki Creations. We're more than a decorating service. We put our all into taking in every detail of your vision and transforming that into breathtaking events. Whether you're celebrating a wedding, retirement, throwing a massive gala, or having an intimate dinner, let Kiki Creations create the moment of your dreams. Celebrate love, laughter, and the moments that really matter with Kiki Creations.
Infinitely me. Handcrafted, intentional, timeless.
Episodes where the husband and wife got in something, and you could hear them fighting, and after the fighting finished, she asks him, "What you want to eat?" And he says, "Pilau." And the guy next door tries to do that, and his wife beats the crap out of him, right? So what works for one person isn't gonna work for you. So
No.
you have to find your spot. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I
you have
agree.
to find your spot. You can't try and emulate things, and I've been to several marriage seminars at church, and I think sometimes church try and put things in a box based on, they use the scriptures and whatnot to create like a mold. But then you have to find, okay, yeah, that's like a guide, but you're gonna have to modify that guide.
Yes, and get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, because otherwise you're
I
gonna be in
agree.
trouble.
I agree.
You're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
One thing that you guys all mentioned and talked about, well, Ms. Tyson and Mr. Thomas, that you don't want to deal with things with infidelity. And I think, dealing with a fancy or a fantasy, what works for you. And I think one of the reasons why people cheat is because they feel like they're missing something in life, whether it be something sexual or even intimate. And intimacy doesn't always have to be sex. Intimacy to me even means something like to have a great conversation. See, I'm going to be so transparent. I don't have to take the clothes off. You have a great conversation. To me, that is sexy. To just spark my mind, I truly think that's one of the sexiest things ever. So I'm just saying that. But some partners won't explore different fantasies, whether it be things that you like. And you said that, Mr. Thomas, you said that your family, they've been known to cheat. But how comfortable are you sharing your fantasies and things that you like, the in real depth, intimate things, not just the physical, but the things that you would like to do with your partner? Or is there something that you'll say, I could talk to Sarah about this, but I can't talk to my wife about this. I could talk to this guy about this, but I can't talk to my husband about this. Do you guys deal with situations like that?
Oh, you're muted.
All of you.
Oops,
I said-
sorry.
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We don't have the issue because there are times when we just lie down on the bed and next thing you know, it's like 2, 3 hours down by and we were there talking about all kind of things, right? When it comes to this subject of infidelity, I there's different schools on that. I have spoken to a lot of my male friends. Some people do it for the challenge. Some people that's how they live. They type A personality and hey, I'm going to go there and conquer the world. Um, some people do it because something is missing at home, and and so that's why they go out. And again, I hate to sound like I'm picking on one, but I can only speak from a man's perspective. I can't speak from a woman's perspective. And I sometimes tell my wife, should we be discussing something with a friend or somebody we know, and she'd be like, well, how he could do that to his wife? I'm like, because women have this wrong perspective on what makes a man tick. You know, um, sometimes women feel, well, went to school, got a degree, I got a nice paying job. That should make my husband or my significant other interested in me. And then
Yes.
right, and then they find out well, he's sleeping with a maid, and they be like,
That
how
was
he could
funny.
sleep with a maid,
Yeah,
right?
because it's like saying, can a deep love, emotional love sustain if there's a lack of sexual fulfillment?
Well, it ain't just sexual. First and foremost, you gotta have an understanding, right? And so maybe she was being so busy being the nurse or the doctor or the lawyer, and he comes home and he doesn't need somebody to listen, and the maid sits down there and listens to everything. And one thing goes from there to the next. You know,
Yeah.
I tell women, men aren't really complicated creatures. We're
No.
not. You know what I mean?
No.
I think y'all
There's some
over.
basic needs.
Yeah, yeah. I remember there was I watched a video with Miles Monroe some years ago, and he said a lady at his church came to him to complain her husband, and she was like, Pastor Monroe, I need you to speak to my husband because all he wants is sex, 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 sex. And Miles Monroe said, ma'am, I can't help you because that's all I want. And
I remember
so,
seeing that interview. I saw that,
right?
yes.
And so what he was
God rest
telling
his
her is like,
soul.
you need to find out, like, okay, there's some common things that run amongst the male species. And let's
Yes.
just be honest, sex is one of them, right? And it's not how I think some women look at sex like, wham bam, thank you, man, but that level of intimacy and listening and talking and you know what I mean? Sometimes you might spend a whole hour just talking things out and not getting into the groove, so to speak. As I think a lot of people confuse that. You know what I mean? Um, I heard Miss Tyson mention uh, the stimulated part of relationships, and that they call it like what a love language. I've heard them say
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
seminars, and so being able to just talk and hash things out. Sometimes you solve some of your biggest challenges just
Yeah.
by being on the bed lying there and just talking. It's not just,
Yeah.
as the song said, knocking the boots, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Well,
You know,
it's a connection too, right? Like
yes,
like that talking for an hour for 2 hours. That's so necessary, I think, in relationships anyway, because that's creating a connection. Because when you start losing that, then other people start taking the place of, those discussions, and I feel like men and women are different. Men and women, the way they function is different, but they're basic things for both sexes, and I believe that just staying in tune with your partner is so important. Understanding that there are basic things that a man needs. For instance, like I got a master's degree. I'm like, wow, I'm all that in a bag of chips. But my husband's love language is, what am I eating tonight? Did you think of my food? Like, did you think of my belly? And literally, if I brought home a plate of food, that's fine. It's not slaving at a hot stove, but it's that kind of mentality, because I've heard younger women or women going at each other on the internet about that he can't cook for himself, but knowing what he needs is very important to me as his wife, just like him knowing what my needs are. And like you said, it not what works for someone someone else doesn't mean that that's what's going to work for you. So maybe you don't need to ensure that your husband got a hot meal at the end of the day, but my husband likes to know that I thought about what he's going to eat, and I'm going to do that because my husband goes out every day and works for this family. Like it doesn't matter what he needs to do, he's going to do it, and I know he's providing. So I don't have a problem with that. I think and I believe my age has something to do with me understanding that, because I think that when you are younger, you're caught up in some, I don't know what, like you were saying, Mr. Thomas, I believe Mr. Thomas was saying that his marriage kind of was almost like based, I'm not repeating it exactly, but what I got was that it's based on what you saw didn't work for your parents, right? The things that you saw didn't work, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite. What I bring into this relationship, into this marriage, are the things that I saw in other people or other relationships that I had that did not work. And so I'm able to not throw out the baby with the bathwater either. So I'm not like, oh, well, he didn't do this, forget about it. Oh, well, he did that, forget about it. No, I mean, you're able to add up things in a complete whole and see, what is it that I really need? Am I getting my needs met? What does he really need? Is he getting his needs met? Because it's about him getting his needs met as much as me getting my needs met. It's not just about, all
that
about
balance.
Me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he has, like, yeah, look at the woman that he has, but look at the man that I have. And so if we're both not thinking that about each other, it's going to be a problem. So, caring about one another, like simultaneously, is so important in a relationship. And I think that sometimes is what the younger generation might miss. And so they're looking for this perfect situation, this perfect person. It doesn't exist. It really doesn't. And
Mr. Shazar, how do you feel about the perfect person? I feel that's a great interjection there.
Well, there's a couple things that were mentioned that I'd like to touch on, and that was when we talk about the tendency for people to want to go and try something that they see work somewhere else. One of the things that we always have to be mindful of is that you have to make sure that if you're trying to model something after someone else, that they're in the correct situation. We talk often about the fact that, in most cases, this is not always going to be 100% accurate, but married couples should not be running around with single people. Right? That's a recipe for disaster. They have different goals, different attitudes on relationships, different attitudes on what they enjoy. So that's a recipe for disaster. So, make sure that you guys are looking at the right model, right? If you're trying to figure out what works and you're trying to get advice from people, make sure that they're doing the right thing. I mean, first and foremost. The other thing that jumped out at me, what everybody was talking about, is the understanding and having that compassion. And, you talk about the love languages, and I find those to be fascinating. But one of the things that I didn't take into consideration as I was trying to understand how to apply those to myself and my relationship was making sure that I understand her love language. So I think a lot of times, and especially when this was introduced and it became wildly popular, was everyone understood very, very clearly what their language was, right? And I'm not going to accept anything less than people love me in my love language. And that's great. However, did you ever stop to think about how the other person needs to be loved in their language? You want to take what you know to be accurate for you and apply it to the other person and think, well, I like this. Why don't you like that? I like this. I want to do it this way. Why don't you do it that way? And that's another recipe for disaster, because it's inconsiderate. And it's rude to think that a person who's completely different, there's a completely different life, or even similar lives, still has a different lens than you. To think that they're going to like something the exact same way you are. One of the things that I heard, I quote this often, but it's so profound. I was at a leadership conference early on in my professional career, and the opening speaker came out, and the first thing he said was, if two people are just alike, one of them is not necessary. And I always think about that in all of my interactions. I want to be able to learn from someone. I want to be able to bring something to them and gain something in return. Because if you're just like me, then what are we actually doing here? We're not really making any kind of stride, any kind of direction. We're spinning our wheels. So, and I think that's where the intimacy can greatly grow, is when you start taking the other person into consideration. It's not about losing yourself. It's not about compromising to the point of you not getting anything. But I think the me first attitude also has done some irreparable damage to some people's psyches and how they perceive what's appropriate in a relationship. And that's something that has to be reprogrammed. Is saying that, yes, you can't pour from an empty cup. But at the same time, if you've agreed to go into a covenant with someone and you've agreed to walk this life path with someone, then you're going to have to become, you're not subservient, but you've got to submit. Both people have to submit. We always only think at one side, but both people. I have to learn to let go of some biases. I have to learn how to stop doing some things, to start thinking a different way, to approach you in a different way. Why? Because I want to pursue a life together, and it requires me to do it. And a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's where you lose the intimacy. And the other thing I'll mention when it comes to that is our society now, in this instant gratification kind of microwave world that we live in, it's running is easier than fixing the problem. And so I think a lot of times the infidelity is simply because someone does not want to sit and have the hard conversation with their partner. They'd rather go and have the frivolous conversation with the person on the outside. So you got to be careful about that too, because you're talking about, well, this person will come listen to me, but what are you talking about with them? You're not having that hard conversation that you should be having with your husband or your wife with them. You're just complaining, and that's their way in, instead of trying to what's actually happening in your home. So, there's a couple of things that we have to always put into consideration, and think about the fact that, when it comes down to it, if you want to continue working on this relationship, then there are some things that you have to do, and you have to adjust, and you have to pivot in order for it to continue to work. After 31 years and all the things that have happened in the world and all the things that have happened in society, there's probably been lots of times that you've had to pivot as a team and as a unit to continue to move forward.
Absolutely. I agree. And speaking about that, let's get into go ahead, Ms. Tyson.
That's so funny. I just wanted to say, because even when my husband and I first met, I was kind of like, I got my whole single mom story. And so as soon as anything happened, I'd be like, you know what, maybe you need to go your way and I go my way. And so when I said that, like maybe the third time, he was like, why is it that that's always your answer? Like, I'm not going anywhere. So why is it that that's always your answer? And that was such an eye-opening moment for me, because I realized that, what you just said, it is easier to be like, I'm not even trying. No.
But did that statement come from a space of insecurity because of the previous failed relationship?
Well, no, I think it's because it's easier to be on your own. It is. It's more difficult to be in a relationship with somebody. Like, you got to figure out people. You got to make sure you got to think about other people. It's not just you. So it's like, I've always kind of, veered off like, hey, I can just be on my own. Like, I've been doing that. Like, everything I've ever achieved in my life has been on my own with my kids, and so I meet this person who's like, he comes from a two-parent family. Like, his parents are together 36 years. That's what he's accustomed to seeing, like people working it out, like mommy and daddy, like together, which is not even heard of. Like that's a rare situation. And so his mind is not what I kept bringing up. Like, okay, well, maybe you go and I go, and he's like, what is that? So the third time I said, he was like, what is that? Why is that always your default? Why can't we just work it out? Why can't we just listen? Why can't you just listen to what I'm saying and I listen to what you're saying? Like, and then when we started to talk about marriage, his thing was like, I'm not getting married to be divorced. I just need to let you know that. And I think that was just, it was so much learning, for me. And just to say this again, just to add this, is that, I raised my 3 kids as a single mother, my 3 adult children. So my daughter, she struggles. She's in a long-term relationship, and she just shared with me maybe about a year ago. She said, seeing you just be so independent. I'm like, I'm an independent woman. I don't need no man for anything. And me and my relationship are struggling now because he's like, why can't I take care of you? And she said, I realized like I have to unpack this stuff. Like my mom was taking care of herself and us because she had to. That wasn't like her choice of hers. So yes, it is okay for a man to take care of me because I take care of him. So it was just, and my sons seeing me be this, this woman like on her own doing everything, like they have so much compassion for women, like they get manipulated sometimes. So they almost have to be like, hold on a second, wait, what? Because I have to be talking to them like, listen, not everybody is kind of coming from a good standpoint. You got to be standing, like 10 toes down and pay attention, because not everything is your poor mommy, poor thing. I don't want to see her cry, poor mom. So it's very interesting how, what people's lens are, right? And what their experiences are and where they come from with that. So it really is just, I think it's just a very interesting conversation. It's probably going in a very different direction than we thought it would go in. But I hope, it's still very enlightening.
Of course, absolutely. Yes.
Well, and I'd like to add one thing, and that's the reprogramming portion, as we've been talking about this. And I want to say that because like people see the relationship that I'm in now, and it is phenomenal. Without a doubt, she is a remarkable woman. But it also came with a lot of really tough conversations. She's talked about a lot of things that she's had to unlearn and relearn dealing with me as a different type of individual than what she's experienced. I've had to do the same thing, and there's been times when I've had to be like, when we've had some tension where I had to remind myself, you're not going to quit. You're not going to leave. You're not going anywhere. You're going to figure this out. Because I had the same kind of mentality, right? I mean, it was just always easier to be like, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what? I can go about my business on my own, but I want this to work. And so I have to tell myself, hey, you're not going to quit. You're not going to just go off and disappear. Like, you're going to sit here and you guys are maybe going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to figure out how we move forward together. And one of the things that I think we exemplified that I have heard most of my life, but had not really seen until now, is the whole concept of being us against the problem and not against each other. Like, that's something that we really hold on to, and we anchor our relationship to. We're going to work this out as a unit against whatever's actually happening.
Yes.
I think both of you are trying to give me a message, because I know what it is to totally be by yourself. And I really feel, I'm not going to say, or that you guys are preaching to me and trying to say, Camilla, be open, because you've been by yourself for so long. Probably you need to not be so hard. Camilla, but it's okay. I'm taking note, and thank God that this is being recorded. I'm getting it. Trust me, it's working for me.
And what's funny about that is that sometimes, like, you have to be so open that you don't know what God has for you, because I would have never thought God had this younger man for me, that he had a whole new story for me. He had another baby for me. I would have never thought any of that. So yes, Camilla, you stay open.
I'm going to stay open as I stay blessed on purpose.
Exactly.
But let's move on to the next point. Let's talk about the slow art of building up versus the thrill of the moment. They say that anticipation is the ultimate aphrodisiac. And some people crave it slow, teasing, build up, those lingering texts throughout the day, some subtle gaze, the hand, the whispers, and just, I can't wait till later, or I'll wait till later. And that keeps you simmering until you finally boil over. And some others just live with right here, right now moments. The kind where one looks like a wink, or, so at the end of the day. So the question is, would you guys rather spend the entire day in a slow, tantalizing buildup, or just cut straight to the chase, forget the small talk? When I get home, I'll just deal with exactly what I want. So you like the buildup or the get to the point?
Well, you go.
It's a variety is a spice of life, right? So if you're going to pick one of those channels, then I don't think you're gonna have much spice. Because especially if you're, you have a professional work career. Now, my wife is retired, so she is at home, um, you know, all day, all week, and then she goes out from time. I'm still working towards retirement, probably the next year or so. Um, but recently, I normally go on vacation around Christmas time, so I was home for about roughly 3 weeks. And so we had an opportunity to see how it would be like, okay, if I'm home all the time, what could happen, that kind of thing. And I guess it's because we've been married so long that we kind of like know each other, what we like and what we don't like.
Good.
Right? So to say like you're gonna be smoldering, I think that that's something probably for people who just jump the broom, and not that it dies as you get older, but you know, the mission when you're newlywed, to me, is slightly different than when you've been married for a long period of time, right? Because even though you might have these discussions when you're in a marriage 5, 7, 10 years, once you get up into, 20, 25 years, a lot of the things you've already discussed, if you haven't really fleshed out things by the time you hit 20 years of marriage, then I don't know what to tell you. Because by that time, I don't think there should be any surprises. You know what I mean? You shouldn't expect somebody to come and tell you, well, I had a child and, you know,
Well,
uh,
they do say you should still date each other.
yeah, yes. And so, date, again, what works for me wouldn't necessarily work for somebody else. And so that's why I say you gotta be spontaneous, though, right? Like during the day, I might call and say, "What's up? What's going on?" Or something happened. We're to the age now where we have friends who, they're most susceptible to being sick. As a matter of fact, one of my wife's close friend, her husband died this week. So, there's some sadness that's going on. We went to a funeral yesterday for a family that we've been long time friends with for over 30 years. And the patriarch of the family was there to rest yesterday. And so we're able to compare notes now, right? Because the people who are in our age group in that family, we are doing the same thing. Grown kids, grandkids, you know, planning for retirement, that kind of stuff. So you look at life differently the longer you've been in this. Now, I often say, I don't know, God forbid if I had to enter the dating scene again if I would survive, because I think what has happened to dating is the reality TV and some of these other influences have made people think this is how real relationships go, and that's not necessarily the case. You know what I mean? And you can't pattern your life after life with the Kardashians or some craziness
True.
like that. You're gonna have to find your happy medium. Um, and there are things that are going to test you. I tell people one of the biggest tests we went through was in 2017 when we had the two Category 5 hurricanes, and we lost everything, like literally lost everything. We were homeless because the house was so destroyed that you couldn't sleep in it. We slept in my wife's car for 3 days until somebody was able to come and clear the brush because trees fell along in our driveway. We couldn't get out. We spent like a couple of weeks by some neighbors of ours, and then we eventually went by my brother-in-law and stayed there for a year and a half, where we tried to rebuild our life. And I think that period, 2017 to about 2021, when we were building, really tested our relationship because her being retired and me having to go to work, I basically left her in charge of like overseeing the reconstruction. And so that built up a certain amount of trust, to the point where some of the guys that were doing construction, one of the foremen, he took, I think he took offense. He never told me personally that he had to be answering to a woman. How dare a woman tell him she don't want it? But I'm like, listen, dude, this is a woman house. And if she want this way, this is how she wants it. Because I don't want after it's finished bill that I going to be hearing, I wanted this and it, you know what I mean, happy wife, happy life, that kind of thing. And so, ultimately, is again, it's going to be what works for you. I cannot sit down here and tell you what working for me is going to work for the gentleman or work for Miss Tyson. I mean, she mentioned she's going and making 4 years this year, so there's a lot of things that she and her husband have to learn. Now, she
Yeah.
brings experience with the fact that she has grown kids,
Yeah.
but she did that on her own, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so she's gonna have to learn to let go of a lot. Well, not a lot, but some of that independence.
Trust me.
All right.
No, it's a lot of it's gone.
Yeah,
Good,
but
good.
it didn't come that easy, I suspect, because you had to do it
No.
for such a period of time. And
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And in my case, I really, my father wasn't the kind of person where I could go to and ask for advice. Because I feel as men, we should be able to go to our father, uncle. So I kind of like had to figure certain things out. But I'm I'm a I'm an observer, so I looked at what was working for some people and what wasn't working, and I made mental notes like, okay, you can't go home and expect every night that the woman is going to cook. So we had developed our understanding from early on in our marriage. I told my
Yeah.
wife, you don't feel like cooking anything tonight, just call me to work, and I could pick something up because you're working too. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
the burden shouldn't be on you to leave from work and go home and cook every night.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
True. And
But
that had to do with building up to, the thrill. I understand things won't be the same. So, Miss Tyson, how do you
yeah.
feel about that? You want
So
the
I
build
want to.
up?
So I do want to just address what he said. So I one thing I had to do was learn how to I had to learn how to trust someone else to lead. I had to
Mm,
learn, yeah, I had to learn how to be taken care of. I had to learn the the beauty of that. We've been together 7 years, so this is our 8th year. So we've been married 3 years, almost four. So we were together 4 years before we actually got married. So when this person showed up, that was like, I'm not leaving. Like that's not what I came to do. I found what I was looking for, and so I'm here. But I want to take care of you. Like and I'd never had anybody take care of me in my life, right? I mean, like literally, that I could remember. So I had to learn that, and I think that becomes quite a difficult thing for independent women. So it's not that I just kind of sat down and said, "All right, you do everything, I'm done." No, like I'm still strong. I'm still smart. I still bring 100% value just like he does. So I think that that's the whole thing, and maybe that needs to be some type of course or something for young women. I don't know, something like that, right? Because I think that there's the notion that if you're doing this, then you're not doing that. If you give this up, then you don't. No, it's not that. It's not cut and dried like that. So and what you said now, so because we have a toddler, so we've been together almost 8 years. Um, our life is different because we have a toddler. So when you have a toddler, you got to grab and go. Like it's hello. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited that we've had these years, just us. To now being parents of a toddler. I mean, I had literally forgotten how they just completely take over your entire life and just like they rule the world and they rule. So both of us are kind of always looking at each other like, right? Yeah, yeah. So that would be nice. So I'm looking forward to being able to spend some time together, just he and I. But I can't rip him away from the baby. Like he doesn't want to leave her at all. Like I got 3 adult kids, so I'm like, she'll be fine. You can just babysit her. Just go. Let's go for a weekend. He's just like, no, we gotta leave the baby. What do you mean? So
Yeah.
that's we got to grow into that. But yeah, so I think that things are just different when you're at a different stage. So at our stage, we might love to, the whole, yeah, let's take time, whatever. Yeah, it's just can't work. It doesn't work. somebody gonna fall asleep. It might be me. It could be him. So
Yeah.
gotta do what we gotta do, That's
Yeah.
it. So and we're excited about, all the stages that we've already lived and that we're living right now and all the growth that's continuing. So yeah. So I think that was an answer. You got it?
Yes, that was
Yeah.
an answer. What about you, Mr. Shazar? Are you throughout the day text and wait, building up the anticipation? Go with the flow because I had to add that
I
part.
get text throughout the day. I do get text throughout the day. Just to let you know, I still do get
I know,
that.
but me to build up the anticipation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's a little of both. I don't have a preference. I think that it's one area where you have to kind of be fluid and adaptable. To Mrs. Tyson Sewell's point, I have two teenagers, and the person I'm with now, she has three little ones. Twin 5-year-olds and a 9-year-old. So, we're kind of in that same position where it's like, okay, sometimes we have the available time to really enjoy an evening together, right? But most of the time, it's like, I'm gonna come by and holler at you for a minute, and then we gotta go. And then we're both super busy as individuals and as a team. So we both have personal goals. We both work full time, and then we have all these different things that we're doing outside of our jobs together and independently. So our schedules are full to capacity. Now we have had that discussion about we got to make sure that we're connecting, frequently and spending time together and that kind of stuff. And we are very serious about making that time as well. But yeah, sometimes you get the luxury of being like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. Most times it's gonna be like you said, like, you're gonna be like, it's great, and then you sleep. Right? As soon as y'all get together, you're gonna pass out.
Right.
Now you're still right, and that happens a lot. Like you get still, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
You're in trouble if I stay awake.
Yes. Raise your hand if you would be into someone barking or growling in bed.
Hell no.
Right?
Where you get these questions from, man?
Are you considering owning a firearms and don't know what steps to take? Call VI Guns and Ammo LLC. They are the perfect place to offer you basic firearm classes. They have the application fee. They'll do full background checks for you and assist you with all the ins and outs and the logistics of owning a firearm in the Virgin Islands. Go on, give them a call, 305-333-8802, VI Guns and Ammo LLC. That's the place to assist you with all your firearm training needs. Call them today.
I'm truly enjoying this. So I'm going to bring it to a part that, my producer, she is just phenomenal, as you know, Miss Tyson. And she thought, she loves games. So she thought probably it would be good to incite a game with the conversation. So that's what I'm going to do now. So we've been discussing some really personal things. So we're going to shake things up a little bit. And I'm going to read you some questions. And some said what you would like in bed, some call it sexy and and I just want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand if something turns you on, or you can shake your head, or you can just pass. If you want to raise your hand, we hope that it's to explain, but you're not obligated to, because as Tabitha Brown says, that's your business. So I'm just going to have some questions. So raise your hand if, and then you decide, however you want to proceed, because I'm really enjoying this. So raise your hand if you find it sexy if your partner has a little funky body odor. Do you think that's kind of hot? Don't all raise your hand at once.
No.
Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever been turned on because someone is doing something completely non-sexual, like parallel parking or washing dishes.
Now, you had me until you said parallel parking.
You be creative, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to be creative.
Yeah, washing the car. washing the car.
Okay, so
It's not parallel
The
parking, but
dishes.
that's a
That's
win.
it.
Right? I tell you what, but for me, watching my girl operate in her natural element, like when she's being creative and she's, dialed all the way into whatever it is activity, and being able to watch her shoot with other people like that, that is certainly very attractive.
you see, that's your parallel parking.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay, raise your hand if food in the bedroom is a yes. Whipped cream, honey, maybe even a little charcuterie board.
Yeah, for
Really?
dinner. For dinner.
wait.
In the bed. In the
You mean
bed.
like if we're watching Netflix?
Fruits.
For
Yeah,
dinner.
fruits.
Watching, while we're not
Yeah, my
not
wife
anything
is
like. It's this single women that's putting together these lists, by the way.
Yeah.
Just wanna say that.
And
They
there you go.
feel
This
like
is
that's what
this is
it's all
why
about.
we
No,
gotta
it's
watch out who
not.
we hang out with.
You see,
That
we're,
right
we're
there.
we're not doing that. We're not doing that. You're not coming down. I said I was going to be open. I said I'm going to be
But it's not
open.
that. It's not that. If you're looking for that, it slowly becomes now. We're watching Netflix.
I'm
You guys
going to be
want to
open.
apple?
Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been turned on by an argument. No?
Yeah.
You never been so upset? It's like they start arguing and it's like, I don't care what she or he is saying, but damn, he fine. Or damn, she fine. You never thought like that?
That's
Even
the
though they're
movie.
arguing?
That's the
Well, I'm
movie.
gonna raise my hand.
I know, not
That's
me.
the movie. No.
I would say yes.
Thank you.
But not in the sense I think you thinking though. Like,
No. This is
oh,
totally however you perceive it. I'm reading the
okay.
question, but you have to perceive it your way. This is what you're thinking.
Maybe if the argument is how much he cares about me, like something that he's like, no,
It's
you're
an
not thinking
argument,
that
and you
because
should raise your hand, Miss Tyson, because you just said you was arguing with your husband, and he said, "I ain't going nowhere." To me, that's hot. That's hot.
okay. I was confused.
Okay, raise your hand if you would be into role playing and scenes while you're being interrogated, or just role playing on a whole. Nobody.
I'll be watching
Probably.
y'all. I'll be
I think
watching
it
y'all
would depend.
movie.
Yeah. I think it would depend.
Okay, we gonna do better next time with our questioning. So, raise your hand if you're willing to let someone boss you around, only in the bed.
I mean, it probably happens.
Well, then
Yeah.
raise your
Yeah.
hand.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? Everybody's
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Okay. Raise your hand if your feet are actually kind of hot. Are you do you have a foot fetish?
What was the question?
Raise your hand if you think feet are kind of hot. If you have a foot fetish, do you have a foot fetish? I don't, but some people do.
But my
Okay,
feet are hot.
See?
My feet are hot.
Okay, raise your hand if you'll be into someone. Okay. I wasn't sure if I was going to read this one, but I guess I'm starting to read it. You win, Crystal. Raise your hand if you'll be into someone barking or growling in bed.
Hell no.
right.
Where you get these questions from, man? It's
That's a
not like
timeout.
The
we're
beautiful
that
lady
type
that
of
you
thing.
guys met in the beginning.
You guys need to
No.
talk to somebody. You guys need to.
Been
What's
watching
something
too
going
much
on there?
funny
I don't
stuff,
really
man.
Okay, this is the last
Free
one.
consultation.
This is the last one. Raise your hand if you would ever let someone narrate your entire experience, like David. And there we see the majestic lover in the natural habitat. You know that guy that's
David
talks
Attenborough?
about.
Yeah, David
Yes.
Attenborough. Yes, Attenborough. Yeah.
He
No,
can narrate anything else in my
And I
life.
said
except
no
that.
because to me, and it's just me, but I am what's the word I want to use? I'm very private, right? And it's not to be like a prude or anything. It's just that's just who I am. I mean, I am not. I have friends who they'll go out in public and do some crazy things, and you gotta be like, yo, you need to get a room. That ain't gonna happen to me. No. For a number of reasons. One, I guess the way I was raised. Number two, um, just because of who I am in the community, you gotta conduct yourself a certain way, you know. And we live in a small community here, so
Yes.
I've had friends of mine get caught in Juve doing some crazy things, and have to go home and explain it. So no, that's not me. That's not me.
I understand. But these questions are for you and your spouse, not anyone else. And I truly enjoyed having these conversations. I learned so much today. I really did. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much that we as a community, we really do, even though we're private people, we probably do need to have small units, because I believe even adults need a village. And we need to have a good village to have these hard conversations to help us with things that we may need a little pruning or helping or guidance with. And, each one teach one. And one thing that Mr. Shazar said about married people, I won't say not have single friends, but I understand what you're saying. Limit the amount of specific people that you have in your life so you can go ahead and create what it is that you're looking for. And I'm all for that. So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show with the panel that we have here, so we could just have different aspects. And the one thing that was definitely, even though we all do our own thing, love is real. You guys love love. You're into whatever it takes to help you grow as an individual and to help your relationship grow. So you're into learning more so you can improve, and you're open to your spouse or your significant other improving and helping them do that, and helping allowing them to help you do the same. So I truly loved the transparency and the authenticity of this conversation, even though we're all truly private beings. Because of some of the things I was like, I don't know if I want to ask them that. I don't know if I want to do that. But I did anyway. And I loved it. I truly did. I will say, before we get ready to wrap up, one of the things that's going on in this true, huge political climate, it's, limiting things like this, having conversations about sex and intimacy and what it is that you want to do with your body and so forth, because those things are being decided on not by you in your home, or not us, even though we're in the contents of our own homes, joining together to have this collaborative. The big person, the higher ups are deciding to make conversations to decide what is good policy, what is a good way for you to, how you should treat your body, or what you should do with your body. I'm not one for that, but I do enjoy the conversation that as you grow, you're learning to have honest, good conversations with your significant others, and how you should want to be treated, how they are open to be treated, and the like. And I think that's what it's about. And relationships are beautiful. Relationships with yourself, your significant other, your kids, your community, your family. I love love, and I love this conversation. So, Mr. Shazar, would you like to give the listening audience any closing pointers before we wrap up? I want everyone to just say a little 30-second whatever.
I'll just say this. A dream without action is just a wish. And that applies to everything in life. So if you want a relationship and you're looking for that person, like, you've got to do some work. You got to do some work internally. You got to make some changes and some adjustments. You're going to have to change your sphere of influence. You're going to have to change maybe where you go. There's lots of things that can happen, but you can't just hope that person's going to show up. And if that person does show up, you have to be ready for them. That's the thing that we don't talk about. You have to be in a position to be ready to receive the person that you've been praying for. So that's what I would leave you all with tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Tyson?
Well, I think, I definitely am kind of the poster child for someone to not give up on love. And also the poster child for, you never know where life is going to take you. So I always would say, continue to believe that someone's out there for you, but continue to do the work on yourself so that when that person comes, you're ready. You are a full individual meeting another full individual, and the two of you are just going to enhance each other, and just kind of strap yourself in for the ride, and I just believe that, yeah, like you just continue to believe that. So I hope that that's what this show has done, and I hope that whatever I do in my life, that's what it represents, that love is real and it's beautiful and relationships are amazing, but it really is about you caring about your person and your person caring about you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
First and foremost, Camila, thanks for giving us this opportunity to do this. I know you were hunting me down for a while, so you finally caught me. Um, I think if I could leave any advice to people is to first fall in love with yourself. I think that's extremely important, because if you can't love yourself, then you really can't love anybody else. And come to grips with what your strengths and your weaknesses are, right? That makes you a better person. Okay? Don't try and be something you're not. And those things that you would like to be better at, work at them individually and collectively. I think that's very important that you share what you would like to accomplish in your life with your significant other, so that the two you can have the same goals. It makes no sense for a tug of war to be going on because everybody going in their own direction. You know what I mean? It's a team effort, so that's going to be very important in relationships. And last but not least, what will work for you won't work for somebody else, and vice versa, right? So kind of be like a horse in a race with blinders on. Just look straight down the road, and keep it between you and yours. And you'll be surprised how well that can work out.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, listening audience, for joining us here. Let's talk about you for season 6. This season, we're going to be talking about family, balance, harmony, and just so many other things. And, if you have some things that you would like us to talk about here, let's talk about you. Let us know. And as always, stay blessed on purpose. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
And wait, one more thing. Let's wish Mr. Shazar happy birthday.
Happy
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Enjoy yourself.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Bye.